call the meeting to order. Would you please take roll?
Ms. Atkins,
When do you want to do this?
Mr. Houston,
Oh, we can do it during the-
Mrs.
the
McDaniel.
good-
Here.
the good
Mrs.
stuff.
Peterson,
Here.
Mr. Sorensen,
Here.
Mr. Wright,
Here.
Mrs. Sheppel.
Here. Can I get a motion to approve the March 4th, 2024 agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Houston,
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen,
Yes.
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
Mrs. Sheppel.
Yes. Commendation and good news.
So I would like to have a former board member who served a year or two step up to receive a plaque for years of service. So if Mr. Wiledge would step to up here, would you like to present it to him?
Oh, well, I can, but
So let's see, how many years does that say on there?
This
They probably didn't
says-
have enough room on there.
I know. In recognition of loyal service of 29 years to the Lewis Central Community School District. This award of merit presented to Daryl Wiledge.
Thank you.
Is that you, sir?
We'd like to get a quick picture of you, if we could. Maybe step through here and we'll get one with this in our background. Does that work?
Come
Yeah,
around.
come right through here.
There.
Oh,
I'll give you a shortcut.
Just watch the cord.
Stand right between us.
turn it around.
Yes.
Sorry. When I handed it to you, I didn't do it right.
Oh, you didn't?
Uh-uh.
That's the first thing you've done wrong?
Uh-huh, well, no.
Now it looks like to the world that you beat me up.
You know what? That'll help my ego.
So have you missed Monday nights yet?
Oh, yeah. Miss them a lot.
Uh-huh. Okay, plastic for now.
You can't tell if I'm being serious or not.
Well, thank you again for all the years
Oh, you're welcome.
that you have given to
Yeah.
Lewis Central.
It was a good 29 years.
Yeah.
It really was. And if I were 35 years younger, I'd do it again.
Okay.
Well, thank
Never,
you.
never say never, though. You never know.
That's true, never say no.
Other things we have, I got to experience my first Clash event this weekend, yeah. That was something. Like there are a ton of people that come. I cannot believe. I mean, I can believe it. Everybody told me like this is what it is, but it was super impressive. And then just the quality of the groups that they had there. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just the quality of the groups that they had there is unbelievable. I mean, you're talking the best of the best from the Omaha metro area and really southwest Iowa. So even clear over from Lincoln. Lincoln East ended up winning it. And I kind of joke, I'm like, I was in swing choir back when, but you know, it was still show choir, but it was swing choir. And our middle school groups on Friday night would have destroyed my high school swing choir. So it's just a whole nother level. So
And can you imagine them in the middle school auditorium?
I don't know,
was-
like I don't know where you're.
Packed.
And for like awards, like there was no,
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't even say it was standing room only because I was standing on the outside trying to like peek in and like it was nuts.
Oh.
So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, we use it as a fun, or our choir uses it as a fundraiser and they bring in a lot of money. So, but it's expensive to make our shows go. So, anyway, I just want to thank all the people who put all the effort and energy and blood, sweat, and tears into that event. It was pretty awesome. So,
We even had a group from South Lake Carroll in Texas.
oh really?
Yes.
Wow.
Wow.
I noticed, and I heard the name. I hadn't heard that name in a while, but yeah, we had 4 states represented: South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, and Texas.
Wow. It was fun. Yeah. And it's really cool. Like I just heard comment after comment about our facilities, our auditorium, and so, even as a promotional thing, just the fact that our kids get to use on a daily basis something that other schools come in and just can only wish they can have. And so that's awesome. So That's about it. Girls went to state last week, or yeah, it would have been last week. And you know, they came across a really. I mean, I think Heelan hit about 60% of their threes, and they were, you know, it was just they were long and they played really good defense, and it just ours didn't. You know, I mean, not that we didn't play well. We just sometimes they fall and sometimes they don't. So that just was, you know, a little bit frustrating, I'm sure, for the girls, but at the end of the day, like, we couldn't be more proud. I mean, just been a couple times in the history of Lewis Central that our girls basketball team has made it to state, so the fact that they did it puts them up in one of the very elite few here at Lewis Central who have gone on to state. So I'm very, very proud of them. Trying to think, anybody else have any good news today? I didn't create a PowerPoint presentation because we have lots on the docket, so.
I've got one thing to add. For those that don't know, I'm a volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association. So I had talked to Jim Dermody, and through Jim Dermody, had reached out to the Harlan AD about doing a purple out for when we play Harlan at Harlan next August 30th. And they agreed to do a joint event, since Harlan does an Alzheimer's walk and Council Bluffs does an Alzheimer's walk. So we're gonna have a purple out event for Harlan versus LC next fall. I was very, very excited about that.
Absolutely.
Which is perfect because they're red and we're blue, and together that makes purple.
Exactly.
I didn't learn much in art, but I learned about my primary colors. So, primary and secondary colors. No, that's great. Anybody else? Alrighty.
All right, we'll then go to comments and suggestions. This is the first time during our agenda that anyone in our audience or anyone online, if they'd like to type something in, can address the board. Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Do we have an updated personnel sheet?
Yes, there is an updated personnel sheet with a few ads.
Is there any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. Report 6.01, Superintendent Report.
So I have quite a bit. I'm going to start off just kind of verbally while we got some presentation stuff to pull up here. The first one is just kind of giving you guys an update on legislation. The House did pass an AEA bill. It's more of just kind of a placeholder for what we're going to end up with. I have been in contact with quite a few legislators, and I do believe that we're going to be able to find kind of a happy medium. I don't think they're going to blow it up to the extent that I was worried about, where we were going to lose services. I also know that it's not going to remain status quo. Like, that's not going to happen. So, trying to find a way that we can retain all the services that we currently have through the AEA, you know, that's one of the priorities that we have right now. So, working through that. They also are talking about SSA, which is our state supplemental aid. I know the House just approved a 3% increase. For some historical context, up until about maybe 2010, 2009, we on average got about a 4 to 4.5% increase in SSA, which would kind of match whatever the inflation is for that year. And then they had a bad budget year in 2010-11, and then that kind of knocked it down. And so since then, we've gotten increases ranging from 1% to 1.5%, 1.75, 2, 2.25, 2.50. And then last year we got a 3% increase, hoping again for a 3% increase this year. It makes it really hard when inflation in general goes up, 4 or 5%, and then we turn around and offer a 3% increase for wages, you know, and I get it, like, that's just the way it is. If they were to come back and say, because I know the governor's bill, the governor's recommendation was 2.5%, the Senate is kind of in line with the governor, and the House says 3%. I'm hoping they all come up to 3%. There's a pretty significant difference between 2.5% and 3% when it comes to our budget and what we're able to settle with our staff. So we're still got some work to do there. The downside is it used to be in code that they had to set SSA the budget year prior. So like, we would be negotiating right now using the SSA that they would have set in the spring of 2023. And then they said they would never make it, like ever would make it. So then they said, well, they have to set it by, what is it, like it's February 15th or February 8th or something like that. We got to set it by February 8th or whatever it was. And then they missed that. So now they're saying there's a new bill that was like, well, you have to set it anytime during the legislative session. Well, the bad thing is we really can't negotiate and you can't fairly negotiate because, you know, if we were to settle let's say we settle on a number expecting 3% and they come back and they have a 2% increase, well, now we don't have the money to pay. On the flip side, if we settle at 2% and they give a 3% increase, well, we could have done more for our staff. And so we really are in this waiting game, and every school in the state's in this waiting game. The problem is the longer we wait, the less secure our staff feels about their positions next year, and the more likely they are, the more time they have to jump ship. You know, so getting this approved, I mean, this is the highest priority for me. And so I've been on the phone with legislators just trying to be like, whatever you do, please set SSA so we can finish negotiations, we can get contracts out, and we can lock down teachers for next year. So we'll see if they can help us out with that. Next thing in legislation, you know, you'll hear a lot about teacher salary increases. There is going to be some language, hopefully, that sets kind of a minimum bar for teacher salary and then provides some money to be able to help schools pay for that. I will tell you that the numbers that they have said right now, the large schools are already paying. Like, we're already paying, or we're real close to paying. Council Bluffs already paying. All the large schools are paying. The schools, so it really wouldn't impact our teachers at all. Who it would impact are the teachers in small schools. So, like for instance, right now, and I can speak on behalf, you know, I know that our starting salary for teachers is around, you know, $48,000, and starting salaries in neighboring small districts are about $38,000 to $42,000. So it would elevate their salaries, which I'm all for. I mean, I think it's, you know, teachers in general need to get paid more, and, you know, hopefully the legislators can help us do that. Next topic I have is the land sale. So that is all done. So we are the proud owners of about 30 acres right down there. And then we have an option in the future to buy the rest up through December 31st. So that's kind of where we sit right now. The welding program, I talked last time about how, you know, we have the funds to be able to do the welding program, the funds to be able to pay the teacher. I would like to, I'm going to bring forth that anonymous or that donor next week to kind of make it open and say, you know, here's the donations that they have provided. The board actually has to accept. I didn't realize. I kind of skipped that part. I'm sorry. You guys will have to accept the donation, and then we'll kind of just make it public at that point who the donor is. But they, you know, the donor has provided enough money for us to purchase, you know, all the equipment and hire the teacher for next year. And then on the flip side, we're applying for a big grant to be able to do some more work within there. You know, we kind of have a base program with what they've given us. To do it right, it's going to require us to build some walls within the shop, run some gas lines, you know, run some electrical, install some garage doors, do a ventilation system that, you know, we'll be able to take it out and then be able to bring it in. So we actually hired a local architect who had kids in the district, Rick Emsweiler, and so he came down last week, met with us. Already have, you know, he's doing it for, you know, a very, very reasonable rate. I mean, and so I think partially because it's not a big project, and partially because, you know, he had kids in the district, so kind of doing that. And but we're gonna proceed with that, with getting some of those numbers and some bids. And then, so one of the things that was interesting was they actually surveyed our high school students. They surveyed 8th through 11th graders on whether or not they'd be interested in welding, you know, if it was offered. And so we had about 33% of our total student body reply to the email. So it was about 400 students. And then 50% of them said that they would be interested in welding. So if that holds true, that's already 200 students that are interested in taking at least one welding class. So, so that's pretty awesome. So we're going to see how that plays out. Last year, I met with, I guess I was a little concerned last year because when I was reviewing our programming options with Iowa Western, I was kind of surprised to see that we actually had more students enrolled in CTE programming at Iowa Western when I was in Missouri Valley, and they drove the 30 minutes down here and they went to class than we did here. We really wasn't a high focus for us as far as getting kids to CTE opportunities, career and technical education. And so one of the things that I said is, you know, why can't we do both? You know, why can't we offer, you know, programming that's focused on helping students succeed at a four-year college, but then also offering opportunities, a lot of opportunities for students to get apprenticeships, internships, certificates, associate's degrees, whatever they want in a non-four-year path. And so that kind of started a lot of questions like, okay, why is it that we don't have as many students? We have a lot of students that take college credits, tons of students that take college credit classes, but not in a really prescribed program that helps them get a certificate in a career and technical education field. So we said, or in a trades field, so I said, you know, let's take a look at, you know, what the barriers are. Well, barrier for one is transportation, and so I kind of took away that barrier, and we said if we have any kids that need to be transported out to Iowa Western, we're gonna transport them. We'll transport them from the school out to Iowa Western. So close, I don't know why we wouldn't do it. And then the number two was our schedules don't align, is what I kept hearing. You know, we have trimesters, Iowa Westerns on semesters. It doesn't mean we can't make it work. It's just messy, you know, when you're trying to mix two different systems together. So I just said, you know, why do we have trimesters? And, you know, there was a lot of reasons we had trimesters. We've had trimesters for forever. Primarily it was an opportunity to provide the most amount of classes that we could possibly offer for our students to be able to take. So for instance, right now we have 3 trimesters of 6 classes. That's 18 total credits that kids can take throughout the school year. Some of the things that the trimesters don't do for us is it doesn't make it easy for anybody to transfer in. So if you, let's say you move here, you're a junior year of high school and you move in mid-year, you know, you can't control when your parents move you in. So you move in. We just have this right now. We have a sophomore student that just moved in the district. Started on like February, February 6th or something like that. Well, the problem is we have about 4 weeks left in our trimester, so you can't really come in and jump into a trimester class because there's only 4 weeks left. And so, but yet you're only going to get, you know, one more trimester. So those are really sticky situations. Like, what do you do with that kiddo? You know, we're not going to stick you in a class with just a few weeks left. And you're not going to get any credit out of it. You know, so it's kind of those scenarios. Or we have situations where, you know, because we have we offer 18 credits per year, our graduation requirements require you to get like 56 credits to graduate. Versus a lot of other schools, their graduation requirements are like 46, 44. And so if you get transferred here, you come in as a senior, you get moved here as a senior, it's very hard for them to get all the way caught up so they can graduate. And so, and then we talked about the alignment with like Iowa Western too. So I said, you know, so last year I kind of brought them all in together, and there was just a lot of questions. How does it work with scheduling? How does that work with, you know, the overall vision of what we offer for programming? How does that work with graduation requirements? And I just said, you know, I can't answer those questions for you. You know, so I tasked them to just find those things out. So they've spent the last year meeting and talking about what his schedules look like. They've made mock schedules to make sure it works out. They've done a lot of comparison to graduation credits. They've done some conversations with kids. They've actually upped, just through this, they've upped their participation out on Iowa Western's campus. I mean, almost over double, so, because that was the other question, like, can you still, if our goals are to give students opportunities to attend at Iowa Western and to make sure we can get them apprenticeships and everything else, can you still do that with our current model? And so that's what they really focused on, was trying to determine if they could. Through the conversations, there's been a lot of positives as far as, and to be honest, it primarily affects the high school because that's credits. It doesn't really affect the elementaries that much. Maybe some of their their exploratory, what do they call them? Specials, like. So some of their scheduling is done on trimester, like that's how they do their assessments and those types of things, but doesn't really affect the elementary. The middle school, all their core classes, they consider year-long classes anyway, so it really only affects their specials or their exploratories. The thing with that is, though, is they can still run those on a trimester or on a quarterly basis or whatever they need to do in order to provide opportunities for those students to take class. They don't really have to mess with their scheduling much. Primarily what it would do is it would change the total amount of courses that a kid could take. Instead of 18 through a trimester, that's 3 sections of 6 credits, it would be 2 semesters of 8 credits apiece. Okay, so you would be a total of 16 classes is what they could take, so 2 less classes. But that's what the majority of schools across Iowa and most other states do anyway. So that's kind of the norm, but it better aligns us, better gets us going in that kind of, when people can be able to transfer in, we can get them into a course and they would have extra time. Another difference is, instead of having 60-minute periods that you would through a 6-period day, it's more like a 45-minute period because you're adding 2 more periods into the day. So you just have to, as a teacher, have to be more planful. But on the flip side, instead of only having 60 days in a course, I now have 85 days in a course or 86 days in a course. So there's give and takes on both sides. So more days, less time per day, so where we're sitting right now is we are going to get together in a few weeks. I'm giving them a couple more weeks to just kind of finalize, and I'm letting them lead us. And the groups will get together and they'll come back and we'll sit in this room again, and I'll just pose them questions about, last year we had questions about graduation requirements. What did you find out? Last year you guys had questions about how the schedules would play out. What is that? What did you guys find out? What did you find out about the pros and cons of making the switch? And then finally, I'm just going to ask them, what are your recommendations? Is this something we can forge ahead with next year? Is this something that we can, we can forge ahead with, but you want another year to be able to plan? Or is this something that's just not going to happen? But I'm going to let them kind of lead us. And so it's exciting. Change is hard, and change is hard for everyone, right? Like it's not super easy, but I think if you do it with the mission at hand of what, how can we ensure that we're providing excellence, and excellence for all kids, like not just the students who, want a 4-year path. And so that's one of the things that we're gonna, ask ourselves when we go down this path, how does this work? And I'll tell you that there, like any difficult decisions, there are people that are absolutely for it, have been since before I got here, and there are people that are absolutely against it, so, but it's just kind of finding that common ground and deciding, what is best for the majority, so that'll take place here soon. As far as schedules go, it won't really affect our overall schedule much because I place right now our student teacher conferences and a couple of our PD days based on where our trimesters end. If trimesters go away, that just allows us a little bit more freedom to place, instead of 3 parent-teacher conferences, we'll go to 2 parent-teacher conferences, which we already do at the elementary. We eliminated the spring conference because it was redundant. And so now we'll just have 2 total conferences for everybody, 2 total PD days for grading and professional development instead of 3. So there'll just be some trade-offs there. But overall, by and large, the calendar's not really going to change. So preschool. So, calendar, I got another one. So one of the things that I want to point out too is When we talk about calendar, there are a couple bills yet that are alive that would allow us to move back the start date if we wanted to. And a couple of them, we would be able to move from the 23rd, we will start on like August 21st, or maybe even back to August 18th. There's one that would make us start later, and that would not be a good one for us, because then we definitely would not get out until June, even with no spring break. Like, there's no way you can fit your schedule in. So if you can start earlier, then we can start talking about how can we get a spring break and get out before May, or not before May, before June. So some of those things are out there. Preschool, we talked last time, we are definitely moving forward with starting preschool with the rest of the school and ending preschool with the rest of the school. Preschool students would be able to ride the bus next year, to school and from school. We would not provide midday transportation, so we'll still provide half-day programming. If they do the half-day programming, then they could ride the bus to school, and then you'd have to come at midday and pick them up, or you'd have to drop them midday and they could ride the bus home. So the whole point behind this is trying to make our preschool programs more appealing to parents, so that way, and work better with their schedule, so that way we can get some more students into our programming, because we're a little light. So trying to figure that out. There are still bills out there in the legislature that would potentially pay for preschool. Either pay all-day programming for all 4-year-olds, or pay for, depending on your income level. So there's one that they would pay for all-day programming if your income level was at 185% of the poverty level or less. So right now, we receive some funding from Iowa West that we use to offer all-day programming, and the purpose of it is to offer all-day programming to help allow students who meet those poverty guidelines to have all-day programming. So that's the whole purpose of it. So if they were to pass these bills, we would no longer receive that. I'm assuming we would no longer receive that Iowa West Foundation money, because they're pretty particular on offering programming that is unique. So if we're already getting, so it wouldn't be like our funding would change much. It just, the funding structure would get changed. Facilities. So we had a facility meeting, and I do have project advocates here tonight, and I'll kind of run through this a little bit, and if they want to speak up, they absolutely can. So we had a facility meeting. It would have been, was it last week? I feel like it was longer than that ago, but last Tuesday? 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
So 2 weeks ago, I had a pretty good group in here. We sat and we talked about, what ifs. I kind of had project advocates, they presented their findings to the group, because they took a fresh look at everything. So they looked at work completed to date, prioritized needs. One of the things they focused on is if we had to slim down our total project, what would be the most important, And so when we're talking about that, obviously we need to do something with our current facilities to get those back into shape. The next thing that would be most important is space, because we can have really nice facilities, but if we have 30 kindergartners in a classroom, I'm not going to find any teacher that's going to want to teach 30 kindergartners in a classroom. That's not going to happen. And so that's one of the things that we have to take a look at as we are on the cusp of potentially growing as a district. So that's one of the things I asked them to keep on the list, because I wanted a fresh outlook on that. And then they looked at, what would potential bond scope options and amounts be? Remembering that last year we asked for $90 million, and it was going to take 2 votes. One vote would have given us the about $70 million. That was the first one. And if it would have passed, it asked for 90, but we would have only been able to levy about 70 if we were to get it, because we're capped at a levy of $2.70 per thousand. The second vote would have allowed us to exceed that levy, so go from $2.70 up to $4.05 in order to borrow more money. So instead of borrowing 70, we would have been able to borrow up to 90. So last year, when we were trying to accomplish everything in one big swoop, and we said it's going to be infrastructure, elementary, and middle school addition, and middle school renovation, which is still kind of in that infrastructure, and middle school addition, that's where that 90 was gonna be needed. We couldn't do all of those projects without $90 million. So when people would ask me and say, okay, what if we don't get it? And I said, well, I can't ask this ask again for 2 years. I can't ask for $90 million in a 2 vote for 2 years, because the second vote that allows us to extend the levy, that doesn't go, that's only allowed to be voted on in odd numbered years. And so we would not be able to do anything. This year, when we were talking about land, and we spent a lot of time researching land, really the only viable option for us to have something located somewhat close to our district would be down here, that we ended up buying a portion of it and have an option on the rest. They would not extend beyond the calendar year. They said, nope, we will absolutely not go beyond 2024. And so that kind of tied our hands and said, okay, we're going to have to do something then, otherwise risk having to put a new elementary school down by Glenwood, or, you know, somewhere else that's going to cost us more money and be more difficult to be able to transport students. And so we sat back and said, okay, if we looked at running another bond, you know, what could we do? Knowing that we cannot run the same bond we did last time. We can run a 1-question bond that would be an amount that is less than what the last bond was. The last bond's 90 million. The most we would probably be able to levy would be about 75 million. And so, and looking at that, is that something that the community could get behind? It would cut the levy roughly by 1/4. It would cut down the bond, the overall total bond scope, from elementary infrastructure and middle school addition to just elementary school and infrastructure. And it would cut the total cost of the bond from 90 million down to 70 million. And so that was kind of the crux of the meeting with the facility committee and the community members there, to say, you know, what can we talk about in order to, you know, get something accomplished? Because every year that we wait, I continue to see our elementary classes get bigger, and it has nothing to do with open enrollment. It has to do with kids are moving into district. Right now, what do they say? There's 46 homes that are popping up out at Hills of Cedar Creek. Is that right? Is that where they are?
Yeah, there's another wing going out.
Yeah. So there's pretty good there. I see they're making a lot of progress out on the apartment along Valley View. At least they got a lot of trucks out there moving again. So, you know, all of that makes me nervous, because I think, you know, apartment complexes, you know, nice family housing, like that brings in families, and we're running out of space. And we haven't approved hardly any open enrollments. So, I mean, up until like this current year, I mean, everybody's in school now in this way it is. We've told every open enrollment for next year, you're going to sit pat until we know what our classroom sizes are, but I cannot control the growth that's taking place in our district. So if you go to the next one. Maybe. There we go. So what they did, if you can kind of see that up there, is they detailed, basically took the report that Shive Hattery had. They came on site and verified what was going on. They looked at a prioritization of deficiencies. They kind of assigned some cost to them, some real cost to them. And then they looked at things like safety and accessibility, parking lots and sidewalks, the envelope of the structure, which is roofing and closure, and then mechanical, HVAC controls and equipment. The new school, they looked at pre-K and K2 options, and then anticipated programming and scope. So what they found, if you go to the next one. Okay. You can't really read it right now, but that's kind of the process that they used right there, as they went through, and they went through and they took, you know, all of the items that Shive Hattery had listed, and they kind of prioritized them and said, this is stuff that needs to be like a red, like you got to do it now. What was the coding system you guys used? Was it?
We used a 1 through 4. 1 being a top priority, which is something needs addressed within the next.
Okay. You guys might have to come up towards this mic. Sorry about that. Just in case you have to talk.
1 is a 1 to 3 year prioritization needs to be handled in that time frame. 2 is, you know, the 2 to 5 year. 3 being the 5 to 7 year, and then 4. So we tried to address the items in the order of how fast they need to be addressed.
Yep.
And we put it into a spreadsheet that's all sortable and, whether it's a structural item, an architectural, mechanical, and then the prioritization. So just trying to make something that's workable and easy to understand for everybody.
Okay. You gotta keep scrolling down. Oh, did you skip one? Or is that next one? So this is what they kind of came up with. Oh. Wow. Was there one right above that? I don't think so. You don't think so? That was it? Okay. There you go. Oh, okay. So what they found was priority 1 is 1 to 2 years. So they're anticipating about this much worth of projects in the next 1 to 2 years. High school about $5 million because that's the one that has the HVAC and the roofs that really need to be addressed. The middle school is the same way. And then Titan Hill and Kraft. Titan Hill is predominantly HVAC stuff, and then Kraft is also HVAC. And then you can see priority 2 to 5, and then 5 to 10. So total, as far as prioritization goes, about $25 million over the next 10 years. Now, some of those we're going to be able to say, we're going to do in 5 to 10 years when we have some money that comes available from our 1 cent sales tax. When that starts becoming, so part of that number is stuff that we're going to put off for a while. Other parts of it, like the priority 1, is stuff that we're going to try to do this summer. As far as getting some of that done with the land that with the money that we are going to use to buy the land. So we're going to turn around and try to knock out a few of those. If you go to the next. So one of the things that we talked about was we have a lot of items on our list that really need to be addressed right now, and primarily they're at the high school and Titan Hill, and that has to do with HVAC and roofing primarily. So what they have done is they've worked alongside Shia Fattery, and they've come up with the list of the following list. So replace the high school chiller. So that's the one that failed on us several times last year. We would look to use it for one more summer because it takes a while to get the equipment in. And then as soon as the summer's over, then we would install it. Looking to go, right now we have 1 unit that runs the entire school. I think they're looking to split that into 2 units. Is that what they're looking to do? Yep. So that way we have some redundancy. If one goes down, we still have some cooling left in the other. Installing controls, head in and kind of that integration piece. So what this would do is go through we kind of mentioned a couple times when the high school was built, it was kind of value engineered out that they would have all these controls that allow you to run the building by zones and by classrooms and be able to have a lot of control over that. So instead, right now, the high school kind of acts like a giant on-off switch. It's all on, all levels, all rooms, or it's all off. And so this would be put in to allow us to be able to control that all on and all off. Noting that a lot of the stuff that this would be replacing isn't necessarily new. It's just we're replacing it. So it's kind of like you're replacing a controller that's only made for on-off with something that can actually speak to a computer and be zoned off. So during the summer when we don't need the upstairs cooled because nobody's in there, and then we just need the gyms and the weight room and that kind of stuff cooled, we'll be able to dictate that only that gets cooled, which is going to save us just a tremendous amount of money over the long haul because energy costs are ridiculous. So that's what that piece is. The front end system will also allow us to connect all the buildings. So our system right now is really antiquated as far as what it'll show you online is it'll show you like basically the temperatures of a room, or it'll be like off, and so then our guys have to spend hours going into that room and trying to figure out like what's wrong here, like what's wrong with the system. This would allow them to be able to see, like, they would get a warning sent to their phone that would say blower fan running low, or blowing fan running hot, whatever it is, so they would know what pieces, what to grab for parts, how to go in, and what to fix in a short amount of time, saving man hours, saving money. The other thing this does is this would not be a proprietary system. If we were to go and buy a front end system, like say made by Trane or one of the big companies, that would only work for train units. So we would have to be, all the units we buy would have to be, that proprietary unit, versus this open system would allow us to have any system we want based on, costs or competition or whatever, to be able to plug into it. And I'm saying this all correctly, right? Yeah, I'm watching you guys, make sure I'm not misspeaking. I've sat in some of these meetings, but I am definitely not an engineer. Okay. So that's what that would be. Replace the gym rooftop units. So right now, the chillers, that water that goes in and out, runs across the roof of our gym, and so, or the ceiling of our gym. And so that over time leaks and condensates and makes the gym really kind of swampy. And so this would cap those lines, and we would put a standalone unit on top of the roof to be able to kind of control that with gas. It's kind of gas fired, isn't it? Yeah. Versus having that water run across. Right now, if you go in our gym, there are some areas of our gym floor that are they're ruined. Luckily, it's not on the playing surface. It's usually under what you would, like what the bleachers pull out over. So mostly people don't see it, but it does affect like our practice space and everything else, because it is tarnished and warped in that area because of the amount of condensation that's come down. Also, during the summer, we have issues with just that floor staying dry and safe in general. We've had to cancel volleyball meets, we've had to cancel practices, we've had to cancel scrimmages because it just becomes so wet in there, it's not a safe place to play. So this would eliminate that. And then the LCHS gym roof, so replacing the roof at the same time. That's one of our worst roofs. That in the commons area is also a terrible roof. Replacing roofing and ceiling at commons. So when you walk in and you look up, on the outside the roof needs to be replaced, but when you replace a roof, that's a good time for you to take a look at the ceiling tiles as well, because all this stuff kind of falls down, like when they drill in the new roof and stuff. If you look up at our ceiling tiles, they must have value engineered the crossbars out and saved a lot of money, because they're 2 foot by 4 foot tiles, but they don't have any crossboards. So if you stand in any of our hallways over the last 20 years, you can see they warp like this in the middle because there's nothing to hold them up firm. So if you stand down there and you take a look down the hallway, it almost makes you like seasick, because it's like this all the way down the hallway. As we do this, because it's a good time and everything else, my recommendation would be, let's replace the ceiling tiles. And while we're replacing the ceiling tiles, because we're going to be up so high anyway, let's replace the lighting and put some LED lighting in there. Again, hopefully saving us some efficiency and saving us some energy costs long term. So that's what the roofing and ceiling at the LCHS Commons is. And then install supplemental Titan Hill heating and cooling source. So these guys spent some time with Shive Hattery and have come up with an idea that instead of extending the geothermal loop, which is underneath the parking lot, instead of extending that geothermal loop and digging up the asphalt and doing that, they're going to add a boiler and what's that? A condensing unit in the boiler room in there, and it's so that way everything will kind of go through those things, and it'll help supplement that heating and cooling. So we shouldn't have the fluctuations in heating and cooling that we've been having right now. Now, that doesn't necessarily help our old units in there, but it will, because right now we have old units in the classroom, and then we have a system that's not sending the correct temperature air to these units. So then it's just fighting all the time. So at least if they're getting the right temperature pumping into them, they'll be able to pump out the right temperature. And then does this include connecting the geothermal loops or not? This is just putting those two systems. Okay, so this also then, we have a geothermal loop kind of on the front area of the school over here, and then we have one that runs on the back side of the school, and they would internally connect those loops in order to make one large loop so it can all help itself. So hopefully that solves a lot of our fluctuating temperature issues, and then we can address the actual units themselves as we need to. So, but this should go a long way. So this would be roughly, and they told me, I said, we got about $3.5 million to work with. That's the money that we would have used to buy the land. You know, what can we do with that money? And so this is kind of what they're recommending is based on their prioritization of needs. So, so that's really, that's kind of what they're going to do. And so we'll come back to that a little bit and have a conversation specifically on this. If you go to the next one. They also went through and took a look at our current classrooms, and as you can see, the red means like we are, technically over capacity, what we would consider ourselves capacity, which is about 25 students in second through fifth grade and 22 students in kindergarten and first grade. If you can see, we'd be over capacity in kindergarten if we did not add. We were able to add one classroom this year there. So, but they're going to move to first grade, and we're going to have an issue again next year. So, if we get another big kindergarten class, we'll be red in potentially all 5 areas, which means we're over our allotment in all the area in every grade. So, when people want to talk about, one of the things I kept hearing last year was well, we're going to build a school based on projections of what we're going to be bringing in, and I don't disagree. Like, that's one of the fears. However, in reality, we're also building it because we're already over in our classrooms. So when you take a look at our classrooms now, we're already full. So my argument could be that we're looking to build a new school so we can expand the classroom space for our current students, as well as those who are inevitably coming at some point. So if you go to the next one. So this is kind of a graph here that they put together, or a table that they put together that shows that, if we were to expand classroom spaces, like let's say we added, and this is for the new elementary school. So, or no, this is just currently right now. So if we were to have 11 sections per grade, we could have potentially enough growth for, the whole, at a max capacity, 242 students in kindergarten through second grade, and then 275 third through fifth, okay? That would be if we went to 11. If we went to 12, you could see the max capacity there, 13, another max capacity, okay? So we have, just by adding, but you think about that, that's adding 5 or 10 classrooms total for, and not even, if you go back, can you go back one slide? One of the things to note, right now we have only 9 classrooms in first grade through fifth grade, only 9. So if you go to the next one. So in order to even go to, like if we said we want to target a total growth of 300 students per class, or even 275, which allows about 40 kids per class growth, we would have to add a minimum of 10 classrooms. Minimum of 10 classrooms just to get to kind of where we should be right now. Minimum of 15, no, that's more. I can't do my math. 6 times 2 is 12, isn't it? 12 and 18. So that's kind of where we're sitting, thinking, as we move forward in the future, like how many classrooms do we actually need? Well, 12 would get us somewhere. 18 would be pretty safe, I think. 24 would be great, because then we probably never have to do anything again. I mean, that's expecting our population to grow by a third, which is not out of the question. I mean, you look at Waukee or Indianola or any of those Des Moines area schools, and they're growing, way faster than this. So if you go to the next one. One of the things they shared, a lot of times I was hearing, kind of on the campaign trail, or, I guess I wasn't campaigning for it, but communication trail, I was hearing, well, you got to wait for costs to come down. Costs will come down eventually. Well, this right here shows you from 2006 all the way until now, 2024, and you can see the cost of construction throughout that time. And you'll see there might be a few very small dips, but those dips are very few, very far between, and they immediately bounce back up. Another thing to notice is that there was approximately a 4% increase per year in construction costs in the first 15 years of this graph. And the last 2 years, it raised 30%. They are not they've seen it level off, so hopefully things level off. But once people are used to getting paid a certain price for a product, that they're not going to lower it. So these prices are not coming down; they're going to level off, hopefully, and then we're going to probably get back to seeing that 3 to 4% increase every year. So one of the things that we know is that to sit around and wait for something to go down is probably not ever going to happen. And it hasn't happened in the history of this construction. So, you try to figure out, okay, when is a good time to be able to build? And hopefully it's now, because things are leveling off, and hopefully they stay level for a few years before they start back on that trajectory. If you go to the next one. Do you guys have anything to add to that slide? I mean, you guys have seen,
Yeah, no, I think that's a result of the supply chain issues we had with COVID. That's why we have that big spike. And you're exactly right. We're not seeing prices come down, but we have seen them flatten out over the last 18 months.
so they've done, I guess I'll let you guys speak on this one, if you guys would.
Yeah, so we're managing the West Side High School or West Side Community School bond issue right now. So we're in the process of bidding out, I think 6 or 8 different projects. And this slide represents what the going price has been. We've had good contractor participation. We had 8 bidders on both schools. There's a slight size difference, so you'll see a slight price difference. So some of the fixed costs stay the same, so you'll see the larger school actually costs a little bit less per square foot. But we're kind of seeing that $345 to $350 cost range for new construction for elementary schools right now.
So if we go to the next one. So one of the things to look at here is, in their estimation, they're looking at 11, if you look at an 11 classroom school, and this is just for K2. One of the things to note on here is you won't see pre-K on here. And the reason you don't see pre-K is because when they ran the most recent projections. Now let's back up just a second. When I talked to Shive Hattery last December, it'd been December of 2022, they quoted me at an elementary school, and when you look at the it's what they're quoting me is like the estimated probable cost of that elementary school at $35 million. That $35 million was based on projections of buildings that they saw go up in 21 and 22, okay? And then you saw these guys said in the last 2 years it's jumped 30%. So I knew towards the end of the bonding process, or the bond referendum process, that the elementary school was gonna come in over what the estimated was at the time. So it was 35 million plus contingency plus soft costs, so we were probably looking at somewhere around 45. It was probably gonna come in around $55 million. And we were gonna have to figure out that cost, because once it's out there, like, you have no choice but to make it happen. They're using the most accurate information possible, which is coming from December of this year, in order to provide this. And then this is actually inflated, because we wouldn't build the school next year, we would build it in 2 years, so they're inflating this number to be able to keep up with that. So that's where, when you look at that and you see, well, why the discrepancy? The other thing is we did not have land purchase or site development in the last bond or last price, so that's another $8 million goes in there, because we had the cash to do the majority of that. But now we're spending that cash on our current facilities. So we have to build that back into the cost of the elementary. So that's where, when somebody says, well, you went from $35 million to $60 million, how did that happen? Well, we actually went from $35 million to $43 million because over the last 2 years there's been a 30% increase in costs. We got to 60 because now we had to add back in $8 million worth of stuff that we were otherwise just going to pay cash for, that we now have to turn around and try to do buildings with. So it's really not that much difference and discrepant in what we were proposing before. But you can see there's a difference between an 11-room classroom, a 12-room classroom, and a 13-room classroom. And kind of right now, I think what we're falling on is that 12 section, I shouldn't say 12 room, 12 sections. So 3 grades, 12 sections. And this is an average cost of what it would take. So when you think 12 sections of a class, of a grade, this includes the gym space needed for that many kids, the cafeteria space needed for that many kids, all the hallways, the lockers, everything that's built into that school is included in that cost. If you look at the soft costs, that is like, what is it gonna cost for, to furnish it, to design it, to kind of all those other things that go into it. So if we decide that we're just gonna move a lot of our furniture from Kraft up to this new school, that's gonna come down quite a bit, because you're not buying all new stuff, you know? So there's kind of a balance there. But you're still looking at about $60 million for K2 school. If you're gonna add the preschool back in there, you add another 10 million. So when we only have a total of $75 million to make it work, something has to give. And so I think that's the difference between being able to approve a $90 million bond and having some wiggle room, and being really tight and cutting $15 million. Like, things get cut, you know? So, and it's fine, to be honest. I don't hate the idea, because this was gonna be a 4-year-old preschool that was added on to here in a daycare. The daycare piece can still be on here. The thing that's exciting now is now we're flipping and we're trying to figure out how we can utilize Kraft to the best of its ability. So we could turn Kraft into a whole early childhood center. So, because it's big enough, like, it's a big building for a preschool. We could have 3-year-old program, we could have 4-year-old programming, we can have all-day programming, part-day programming, we can have birth to 3 programming, we can have daycare, and then we can also section off part of the school to have a K or a pre-K2 therapeutic school that we were talking about. I've already been in conversations with, you know, potentially Council Bluffs to partner on something like that, where we would take the early little ones, like the pre-K through 2, because it's already an early childhood center, and then that would free up their current therapeutic schools to be able to take more, you know. And this is all hypothetical. This is not anything that's been written in stone, but, you know, it's good to have community partners and have that kind of conversation. So when we think about those things, having preschool stay down at Kraft is not the worst thing, because it would allow us the space to do a lot more programming, and it would allow Kraft to remain a meaningful part of our district. So, and it's nice, a lot of our, you know, that way, you know, that section of town still has, you know, a school in their neighborhood. So making sure that that's there as well. But then we have everything else that's more centrally located for transportation and everything else. If you go to the next. So this is the potential bond program item. So one of the things we talked about is the priority 1 needs. Priority 2 needs would be like the next section, and then the new school. So the new school would take up the majority of that money, and then we are going to take care of some priority 1 needs this summer. So that'll be about $3.5 million off of that. So to leave some room to be able to get the majority of our infrastructure stuff done. You'll notice there's no middle school addition on here. When I think about space, and I think about who would benefit most from space, it's not that the middle school wouldn't. However, I can stomach putting middle school students in portables before I can stomach putting kindergarten students in portables and having to come in and out between buildings. Like, that's, you know, with the snow and everything else and wrangling them back and forth, that's kind of a no-brainer. And then we would come up with a plan to, once our 1 cent money is done, you know, is done being paid off at the auditorium and the operations, we could then turn around in about 2032 and put in, you know, look at middle school addition, you know, other things. So just trying to plan long-term. If you go to the next one. And like I said, this is all hypothetical. We're just trying to figure out, if we had to pencil it out, what does it look like, you know? So potential bond program options. Obviously, the first 2 are out of our range. We can't do it. We can't do, you know, we're not going to be able to bond much more. 77, we could maybe bond for with that first question. We are not going to have the capacity to be able to bond for any more than that, because that second question can only be asked an odd number of years. And so this would potentially be, and I'm trying to be as transparent as possible. This is what was communicated to the facilities committee to be able to provide some feedback and input. If you go to the next one. Oh, that's it? Oh, there it is. So then this was the final question. And one of the things that I want to put out there, and if you can switch now to that, did I send you a survey, Lisa? So I sent a survey out. One of the things that we want to do through, I think it's that one. Nope.
It was the first one you had.
No, it should be a survey. It's probably still in your email.
Because we just got that.
Yeah. So there's a survey that,
Very top, Lisa.
you know, this is obviously, anytime you have a vote, obviously that's a community decision. The community goes out and votes for it. But we want to be able to get some information from community members to find out, like, you know, was there something we can do better to better communicate things? Is there avenues that we can provide people to be able to, you know, share their voice a little more and be able to get the questions answered that they want answered? And, you know, in fact, not in hyperbole or anything else. You know, is there an opportunity to, you know, is this something that potentially the community would at least support putting on another agenda, you know, or another voting item? You know, I mean, that's what we're trying to find out, you know, if it's worth putting on there for another vote. Because as you can see, every year that cost continues to rise and the need's not going away. And at some point, this is going to be something that is going to have to at least be highly considered. So I'm always one that tries to do the best by the stewards, or by our tax payer dollars. And, you know, as a good steward, I think it's at least an option to throw out there to them to say, is this something you would potentially look at? We still have some meetings to go. They're going to bring back some information. We got to meet with the facility committee again to talk with them about some of the questions they had the last time we got together. But right now, this is, and obviously there's nothing for you guys to approve. This is just simply hypothetical, but we are going to print out the survey. We're going to mail it to all of our voters in the tax district, or in our district, and then also send it home with students and backpacks, and we'll have opportunities online for people to fill it out. We'll have opportunities for you to scan a QR code and send it in. Just trying to get some answers as far as, you know, what can we do to better serve our community is kind of what we want to know. Right now, we are planning on sending this out the week of, it'd be the week of the 11th, so it'd be next week. We would send it out, and then we would have it due back to us by April 15th. And then that would give us some time to kind of review and, you know, give us some time to determine, you know, what are next steps, you know, now that we have the information. So. One of the things to note is that so a lot of things are tied to facilities. It's not just academic performance. Academic performance is absolutely tied to facilities. The smaller classroom sizes you have, the more individualized instruction you can get. One of the other things that's tied to facilities is also costs. You know, it's a lot more expensive to maintain old stuff than it is to maintain new stuff, you know, so we're spending a lot of money on maintenance. Another thing that I just found out today is we're going to be getting a survey from EMC, which is our liability insurance cover. So they cover all of our facilities and everything like that. And they're going to be sending us a survey. And they are going to have Andrea fill that out. She's going to have to get Jim with her, but they're going to have to fill out things like ages of roofs, ages of HVAC, you know, like they want to know the age of our buildings, the age of our infrastructure, and then they're going to give us a price adjustment based on that. So he's saying based on our current facilities, we can expect to see about a 20% increase in insurance this year. And that's significant. Our liability insurance is a direct tax off of our public because that's part of the management fund. That's how we pay that. And so there's really only two options in Iowa for liability insurance coverage. So if you don't like one, you can go to the other, and they'll probably stick it to you just as hard. So that's one of the things to understand is like there's also all these other costs, all these soft costs. Like right now, we have next to no LED lighting in the district, and we have a lot of older units that are not very efficient. And we have things like the high school where everything's on at once or everything's off at once. All of that drives up the cost for us to do business on a daily basis. So even though it's an investment, it's a one-time investment versus ongoing cost that we're taking a look at. So that's why I think it's at least prudent that we throw out options to our community to say, here's another option for us to try to get in line with, but also realizing that, like, one of the things we talked about was the bond was maybe too big. We had too many items on the bond. It was 2 questions versus 1. Well, what if it's a less bond? It's a fourth or a third of the levy that you're gonna have before, and we're gonna focus on just an elementary school and infrastructure, or nothing else, and it's 1 question. Does that make it easier to stomach? So, but like I said, lots of questions, or lots of conversation to come, lots of questions, lots of answers, hopefully, before we proceed down that road again. So, but we have a couple of great partners here now and project advocates to be able to help provide the answers that people need. When people come to me in a facility meeting and ask me a question about anything related to engineering, I just stare at them, because I'm like, I don't know. My degrees are actually in education, so I'm just guessing. So being able to have people that can speak to it is excellent. I think that's it. I think that's it for my report. Sorry, that was a long one.
Does anyone have any comments or discussion about the survey that will be going out?
I really like the variety of questions that you placed on there, because having seen or being a part of sending out a text message before, having seen some of those results come back, I think it covers a lot of the same areas where we felt like there were questions from the community as to what level of support they would be good with. So I liked seeing that.
And like I said, the survey's not going out till next week, so if you guys have any individual issues over it, please contact me. We can still tweak it. So, to be able to get the right survey out and get the right information,
So the middle school is not included in this, though?
there's no way. Well, take that back. Middle school addition's not in this. Middle school renovation is included in the infrastructure piece. So before we had all that spelled out separately. So we had infrastructure, elementary school, middle school addition, middle school renovation. So it was almost too much to put out there. People are like, holy moly, look at all, like, so now it's just, you're taking the pieces of the middle school that were the most important items and putting them with the most important items for the other buildings and creating one infrastructure list. And then creating one elementary school. The middle school addition, if we were to wait till next year and we could do the 2 questions again, then we can come back with a big ask again, and then we can get everything done. But the people that own the land are not waiting till next year.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna do the elementary school and have it be in a centralized location, this is kind of the one, we're like one and done here. So, trust me, I was hoping to take a year off and not go down this path, especially in a presidential election year. Like, that is very difficult. But we're kind of in a crunch time scenario. So, but on the flip side, it'll be less than what we would have asked them otherwise. So from a community voting standpoint, if you wanted a smaller bond, lesser items, this is your bond. But if it has to go another year, then that other additional portion might be added back in there, because we'll be able to ask 2 questions. So it doesn't mean the middle school addition won't happen. Let me preface that. Just wouldn't happen now with the rest of this. Time and money, that's all I need.
Don't we all?
Okay, we'll go then to our discussion item, 7.01, 2024-2025 budget hearing timeline.
I'm gonna let Andrea talk about this.
Yeah, so last year in the legislature, they changed the school budget process. So I just wanted to give you guys the timeline on how this will work now. One of the new things that has to take place is setting the initial maximum property tax, and you have to have 2 public hearings this year and going forward. So with the initial maximum property tax, we have to submit that to the Department of Management and to the county auditor by March 15th. From there, the county auditor will produce a taxpayer statement, and that will be mailed to all of Lewis Central District residents. On that tax statement, it will also have any county taxes or city taxes if they're applicable to the resident. So that will all be listed on that taxpayer statement, along with our proposed property tax first public hearing, which we have that set, or proposing that to be held on April 1st at 6 p.m. With that public hearing, it cannot be held until after March 25th, and it has to be held separately from any other board meeting. So that evening, we would have 2 board meetings. The first board meeting would be at 6 p.m. with our public hearing. The second meeting would be held at our normal time of 6:30 unless we have a substantial number of people at the public hearing, then we would press back the start time for that. That also has to be published in the newspaper, has to be posted to our district website and to our district social media. So I am working on getting all of that coordinated, but without knowing SSA, it makes it a little more difficult as well, because whatever SSA is set at, that will determine our highest initial maximum property tax levy, because we did have an increase in enrollment, so we won't be on budget guarantee or anything like that. So I am hoping that they'll pass it this week so I can go through and finalize everything. Otherwise, I will have to set it higher than what we will think it will be and publish at that rate, and then just make changes once they do pass SSA. So after that first public hearing, then we also have to have a second public hearing. So we have to publish notice for that in the newspaper. That public hearing is kind of the same public hearing that we have always had in the past. That one can be held with our regular board meeting. So that one is planned to be on April 15th. And the other change that took place with the legislation is, in the past, the budget was due on April 15th, but with all the new add-ins, they have pushed that till April 30th. So on or before April 30th, we will obviously approve the levy and all of that on April 15th, and then I will submit all of that to the Department of Management and the county auditor. So it is a very new process with a lot of additional steps in there. So I laid out all the dates for you so you guys are all aware of when everything will take place. And I also included, if anybody has any questions, more of a summary of what each process actually entails in the packet. So tonight, the only thing that we'll be approving is that we will be setting the first budget public hearing for April 1st, 2024 at 6 p.m. here at the ERC, and setting the initial property tax once SSA is set by the legislature. Obviously, if they do not set it by the end of the next week, I will work with Dr. Hazing on what we feel is the best percentage to use for that, and then we'll move forward with setting it at that amount. I will promise you that I will set it at more than 3% if that is the case of where they are still thinking it'll be, so that we can make sure that if by chance it is higher, that we are able to take that into consideration as well.
So the difference is, the first one that you do, so the first hearing date, whatever number you bring to that first hearing date, you can't exceed. So we're gonna bring a really high number to that first hearing date, which is hard because it's gonna be a really high number, then that's gonna also go to the community, but it's a number that we'll never actually land on, but because the state hasn't approved the SSA, we have to do that, because let's say we think, oh, they're gonna settle at 3%, and we do 3%, and then the state comes in and is like, no, we're gonna do 5%, we're stuck at 3%, because whatever number we share first, we can't exceed. We can always come down. So the idea is, if they're not gonna give us the right number, we're gonna set a high number, so that way, when they come back and we actually have the numbers, then the second meeting would be our actual numbers, you know? So then they come back and be like, okay, now here's the real one. So it's just, otherwise you can lose a lot of money for your kids. And so trying to get the public to understand too, hopefully 13,000 people are listening to this tonight, that, few, okay. Hopefully they understand that, like, the number that you're gonna get prior to April 1st is not the real number. It's just a number that we have to set. And then you can expect the real number to be less than that, so.
Are there any questions?
I hate that they make us play games like this, but it's, you know,
Right.
it's not our rules, so.
Well, the state's the one that tells us.
Right,
I
yeah.
mean, we don't make
Mhm.
this up ourselves. Okay, any questions? Right, we'll go to 7.02, Power School module purchases.
So I sent you guys an email. There's three
Nope, wrong one.
proposals.
Nope, Power School.
Powers.
Oh,
Not
sorry, Power
Chromebook.
School. Sorry, I was wrong.
That's Chromebook.
Yep, that's Chromebook. That's not Power School. Okay. So when you look at, let me pull this back up here. When you look at the Power School module, so we want to add some new programming to that. We're gonna eliminate some programming that we currently use. So we're gonna use that money to purchase this. So the Power School Smart Find Express, Time Clock Plus, both allow. You can explain, what do those two programs do?
So those are our time clock and our absence system that we currently right now source through Frontline. But we're running on two different platforms. So our HR system is fully Power School. Our SIS is Power School. Majority of our products that we're using are Power School. So this would just streamline that process that we're using currently through Frontline, and our Frontline renewal is set to renew at over $25,000. So these two items, along with two more products that we would be able to add to our HR system, the Perform, which is our evaluation process, and Professional Learning, which would help us in the HR side of tracking all of our teachers' graduate credits, all of that HR process, along with some more things that would be helpful in our HR process that would be able to take care of that with our professional development funds and the funds that we're using currently now to pay Frontline.
Yep.
Are there any questions? So we're getting rid of some and going with.
Yep.
Yes.
Align it with what?
Yes, we're
to
aligning it
use.
with, yes.
Okay.
Our application system is Power School. Our full HR paperless system is Power School. Our SIS is Power School. So we have quite a few Power School products, and then just the two Frontline. So they don't always talk to each other.
Mhm.
This would allow them all to talk to each other and help out all of our systems.
Okay. Any questions? All right, we'll go then to 7.03, Chromebook renewal purchases.
So every year we order about 800 Chromebooks. It's about 3 grade levels. So the new 6th graders coming in get a Chromebook that they use through middle school, the new 9th graders coming in, and then we rotate one of the grade levels as well. So that just makes sure that our Chromebooks, you know, they can last for up to about 5 years, and then after 5 years, they, you know, just like pretty much any device, it's toast, you know. And really, middle school kids, like, they limp through their third year, you know, they'll make it through 8th grade, and then when they get to 9th grade, they get a new one. So, so we did get the 3 bids in, and we use our PEPAL fund, which is our physical plant and equipment levy, to pay for this. The 3 bids that we got in were Riverside Technologies. They came in at 300,000 or 300,800. That is for the Chromebooks themselves and then licensing. And then we had CDWG came in at 326,508.20 for the same bid. And then SHI came in at $319,085.60. So my recommendations to go with RTI. RTI we've used for a lot of years here. They provided our Chromebooks for forever. So, but I mean we're saving about $19,000, $18,000.
And there hasn't been any issues over
No.
the years?
No, we haven't had any issues.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, we'll go to 7.04, Summer 2024 Large Infrastructure Project Plan Review.
So I kind of talked about this a little bit during the presentation. This is not, you guys aren't approving anything tonight. I just want to get your feedback on the thought, and this work has been taking place since December when we met with the facility committee and walked through, you know, if we didn't pass the bond, like, what do we have to get done first? And so Shive Hattery made the recommendation, the committee reviewed it, then these guys came in, project advocates, and they made another recommendation aligned with it. Facility committee approved it again, and they're all gun-ho on saying, yep, these are the items that need to be done. So replace the high school chiller, go from 1 system to 2 system, replace add gym rooftop units, and then cut off the chiller that goes across the gym. And then Titan Hill supplemental heating and cooling source, the control systems that we talked about, and then roofing at the high school, roofing and sealing at the high school over the commons. So what I need from you guys is input, because if you guys, you know, generally sound like you're okay with it, the next thing we'll do is I will have Shive Hattery and project advocates will actually create the bid documents, and they'll get those sent out to go bid. And then when they come back, then that's your guys' opportunity to review the bids and accept a bid, you know, so in these essentially 6 areas, so.
Any discussion? What do you guys think? Is this about projects being done this summer or starting this summer? Because
Yep.
then you have to order some of this
We do,
stuff, and you
yep.
can't, it won't be in until fall.
That's
or-
why these guys, you know, this is kind of a timely manner. They want to be able to get these bid packages out, so that way we can get them back, so we can have a chance to get the work done this summer. Because right now, all the contractors lining up their summer stuff, so,
Yeah.
have been for months.
So that was gonna be my question, would we have contractors available once?
What are your guys' thoughts on
I
that?
think the one that's most critical would be trying to get that lobby in that area in the high school done, where we're replacing ceilings, lights, and everything. So time is of the essence. We need to get lights ordered, those kind of things. Some of the roofing options and other things that are outside the school, not as critical that we get them done before school gets in session in the fall. But again, we want to get going right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Everyone okay with
All right,
as presented?
Yeah.
okay.
All right. 7.05, Professional Service Contract Project Advocate.
Now, they're actually gonna give this to me on the 18th. They're still working through, they kinda wanted to hear from what you guys thought as far as, final summer projects, cause they'll come up with right now we operate kind of a retainage, with these guys, so they kinda bill us in their hours and that kinda stuff. When we actually do projects like this, larger scale projects, then they'll come up with an estimated cost that you guys will review and approve separately. That protects us, because then if, you know, the projects go way over, you know, and it protects them to make sure that, you know, they have, some consistency with the program and the project as we move forward. So we won't have theirs till the 18th. Shive Hattery went ahead on the next one, and I guess, so there won't be a vote on this one tonight.
Okay, so we need to table that?
Yeah, you guys will table it, yeah.
Okay, and then if we go down to 7.06, the professional service contract for Shive Hatterly?
So Shive Hattery, so
Hattery.
Shive did send us a proposal, so of course, anytime you have anything structurally related, like roofs or HVAC, you have to have engineer, architect, do the bid plans or do the documents for you. So I asked them for two things. I asked them, one, if they would give us a quote, if you go back to the Shive Hattery, I asked them to give us a quote on professional services agreement for HVAC improvements. The roofs, pretty much, they'll sign off on that, but the roofs, we don't really need to be designed. Those are more like, we get with a roofing company, or, we say, what do you need to do to fix this roof, On the flip side, the HVAC stuff does need to be designed. Like, it's pretty intricate, so as you scroll down, this is their kind of scope right here, which is everything we already talked about. And then, keep going. They'll create all the bidding documents. They'll work with project advocates to make sure it's done correctly. And so this is their estimate for the compensation for those projects. Now, note that it's usually architect engineering fees are usually 7 to 8% of your total project. So this was not a surprise for me. I mean, is this what you guys, in the realm of what you guys have typically seen?
Yeah. To be honest with you, we haven't reviewed the total scope. We met with them last week to make sure we didn't have too much scope. For example, they're coming from Des Moines, so for site visits and those kinds of things, we try to get them to minimize the amount of trips they make, so you're not paying for them to drive back and forth, because we can do a lot of the on-site observation view right here in the community. So to be honest with you, I haven't reviewed to make sure that was taken care of. I believe it's less than what they had originally proposed.
Yes. This does not include the Titan Hill design, though.
Okay.
This is the high school only, this particular one.
Okay. So we potentially have the Titan Hill one as well, would be separate. So, but I haven't seen that one.
It doesn't include the roof yet either.
Does not.
So this would be the high school HVAC, and they want to get on this right away, for design portions, so that way we can get the stuff ordered. And then the other one that I'd like you guys to consider, and I had this kind of brought out separate, this is more of the interior. So when we talk about, so when the auditorium was built, the commons area was kind of torn apart, like we used to have lots of, like, the Hall of Fame was up on the wall, and they had, kind of a lot of that kind of stuff. Well, if they're gonna end up doing the ceiling and the lights, we had started having conversations about, like, painting and what to paint and what not to paint and all this kind of stuff, and I just said, here's the deal, the commons is probably the most visited, the most viewed section in our entire district. Like, and that was evident by just having class the other night. So this would, so I asked them if they could put together a bid package not a big package, but a proposal to design the commons aesthetics for us. The ceiling, the lights, the painting, redo it, if they can help us, visualize that. I know what I like if I walk in a room, be like, I like that looks nice. But for me to sit here and be like, oh, we're gonna do this with graphics and this with, I can't do that. So, so I asked them if they would put together something to help us out. And like I said, this would be up to the board whether or not, and for me, this is just guarantee that it's kind of done right. So that's kind of what they said for a design fee. If the board decides they want to go a different route, then we can look at something different too for interior design. I mean, it seems like kind of a high number, but
I was gonna say, that's not the labor, right? That's just.
that's
the-
just
Just the
design.
architect, that's just the design.
Okay.
That's just the design. So I was a little surprised at the high number.
It's expensive.
Would this push us over the 3.5 then, if we did the additional, like,
this would go
Painting.
under our, so this particular one would go under our yearly,
Oh, gotcha.
summer projects. So we operate at about $2 million yearly summer projects.
Gotcha.
Right now, we're sitting at like 1.3. So we have about a $700,000 cushion. So that's where we'd factor in the commons stuff, so.
In the numbers that we listed on the summer work breakouts, we included about 20% on top of like hard cost that to include and swallow up all the design and everything. So those numbers.
Oh, really?
They're built into some of those budget numbers, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, now I have more money, so
Right.
that's good.
So we can come in lower than what is actually shown.
So are you saying that
So-
these estimated costs right here, like this 34,000 is included in those numbers?
We put 20% in.
Okay.
For just any miscellaneous costs, our costs, the design fees.
Okay.
So it should be covered for the most part, yes.
Yeah, the one thing you could ask for, Shy Pattern, and again, we just got this information too, so we're covering activities, just like you were running a little bit, is kind of an effort schedule, so they can say how many man hours of each different trade, because this one's a little bit complicated, because you got an electrical engineer who's got to redesign the lighting layout and the lighting system, and you've got a little bit of architectural time. We were a little surprised by the amount too, because
Okay.
we thought it was a fairly straightforward piece. So we could ask them for an hourly breakdown of how many hours of this trade, this craft, as part of that, because we're still waiting for
Okay.
the roofing proposal as well. So we
Okay.
get them in a habit of providing an hourly breakdown of each trade, each craft.
So what I would say is then so with the first one though, do you think the
I think
first one?
The first one, we can go ahead and move forward.
Okay.
Just because it's a mechanical system that it is rather complex, and we don't have really much trade overlap. This has got electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, and architect, so it'd be good to understand how they put it together before we approve that one. But the mechanical is pretty straightforward, and we do need to order those chillers.
Okay, so my recommendation would be then approve the
HVAC.
HVAC one, but then table the second one.
We
Yeah.
don't, do
Yeah.
we need to table the second one, because, I mean, or.
Yeah,
do we
you can just-
Or
you
we
can
can
just-
just wait until they come up, because it says, we will be making a motion on a professional service contract from Tri Hattery, we can omit this, and I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, that's fine too, yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, when that time comes, yeah, you could just approve the HVAC one, yeah. Okay,
Simpler.
yep, for sure.
And we would just put it for the 112,000?
Yep.
Yeah,
I
just
got
that
it.
one.
Okay, but it also says plus expenses, so.
Well, that one says plus fees.
Well, they all
One says
include.
plus fees, one says plus
Yeah.
expenses. I'm just
So
gonna
when they
go
say
by
plus
as worded.
expenses, that,
Is that their travel?
that's pretty,
That's
The,
typically travel.
Travel expense or printing expense typically would be on top of
And
that.
Plus
it's
expenses.
right there underneath the same.
Okay,
Yep.
reimbursables.
Fixed.
right. And we can have a breakdown of that.
I think it might be in there, I've seen it in our previous ones, so if you keep scrolling down, you might see it.
I'm just wondering what that number, or even approximate.
Well, we met with them last week before they put this together. We really tried to minimize the
There it is.
travel.
Okay,
But you can kind of see, they're keeping track of their costs, and they're adding 10% to it.
So you're not paying for their time, it's just the mileage, essentially,
gotcha.
because they should never have to overnight, stay here, or anything like that.
And they're just traveling from Des Moines,
Yes.
so there shouldn't be any airfare, or there shouldn't be any, okay.
I think we got it down to, a handful of trips. Originally, their original proposal was quite a bit higher, and they were coming over much more often.
Okay.
Pull back on that.
Okay,
So I think, I wouldn't expect this to be a big number. It's a few $1,000s, I would suspect.
okay,
So we have these guys.
right. So we have just the 112,
Yeah.
112,000 plus expenses. And then we won't need to mention the other one, and we'll just bring that back?
Yeah, then I'll get with these guys and them, and we'll make sure
Okay.
that that's because it's high as it is, because to be honest, I wasn't anticipating spending all that much in the commons area. And so I might sit with these guys and try to figure out how to make that work, so.
And I think we should probably, Brett, look at that with the roof. They still owe us the roof.
Okay, yeah.
So I think, I would combine that interior and the roof one together.
Okay.
And see what efficiencies we can get.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, any other questions? All right, we'll go then to comments and suggestions. This is the second time during our agenda that anyone in the audience or anyone online can type something in to address the board. Hearing none, we'll go to our action items. 9.01, 2024-2025 budget hearing timeline.
Madam President,
Mr. Houston,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the setting of the first budget public hearing to be on April 1st, 2024 at 6 p.m. at the Educational Research Center, and setting the initial maximum property tax once SSA is set by the legislature.
Second.
any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.02, Power School module purchases.
Madam President,
Mr. Houston,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of the Power School Smart Find Express Time Clock Plus Perform with Danielson and professional learning modules for an annual cost of $37,071.20.
Second.
any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.03, Chromebook renewal purchases.
Madam President,
Mr. Houston,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of Chromebooks and licensing from Riverside Technologies, Inc. for the amount of $300,800.
Second.
any discussion?
I just wanted to note, it looks like too, they're local, correct? And the other
Sioux
two
City.
are not?
Yeah, Sioux City, yeah.
Regional
Yeah,
versus
right, correct, yeah,
national. Okay.
yeah.
Right. And, yeah, and I don't think, that's one reason why is because they're local.
Able to respond quicker.
Yes.
Yes.
If I remember right, they do a lot with our cameras and security as well.
They do a lot for a lot of the, like, we used in Missouri Valley, because it was, I remember having issues and somebody had run it down from Sioux City for us, so.
Right.
That's not, you always go with low bid anyway, but it's nice when the
But
low
another
bid.
plus.
Yes, nice when the low
Yes.
bid is also responsive, so.
Right,
Yes.
right. Okay, vote, please.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.04, professional service contract, project advocate.
Madam President,
Mr. Houston, we need to make a motion to table it,
I was
correct?
gonna-
Yes.
that's what I was.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that's what.
Apologies.
Go ahead.
No worries. I'd like to make a motion to table this particular item until further information is provided.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.05, professional service contract, Shive Hattery.
Madam President,
Mr. Houston,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the professional service contract with Shive Hattery for the high school HVAC infrastructure work in the amount of $112,000 plus expenses.
Second.
any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. Our next board meeting, actually you have down April 17th, but we'll have April 1st.
March 18th.
We're gonna have March 18th.
And we'll have March 18th. How's that sound?
That also says,
I was gonna say, I thought
April
we were-
17th, 2023, so.
That's weird.
Okay.
Oh, what are you guys looking at?
Just
our
agenda for the day?
Oh, the packet says March 18th, 2024.
Well, the printout says
Weird.
It's a good thing we
April
approved the
17th,
packet.
2023, so we'll,
On
Yeah,
the agenda.
Yeah, the
okay.
packet.
Our next board meeting is March 18th, correct? 2024 at 6:30. Then we'll worry about the April ones later. Anything else? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?